Thank you for tuning in. You're in for an educational treat. Which real-life serial killer frightened/disturbed you the most? The Axeman of New Orleans basically forced the entire city into playing jazz music so he would spare their lives. Pretty horrific deaths, and nobody was ever charged for the killings. It's thought that a party promoter was the person who sent the letter demanding jazz be played. Axeman is very interesting because it's rarely mentioned that he only attacked Italian shopkeepers. Probably the most well-known series of hate crimes in the US. An adaptation of this killer was featured in American Horror Story. Toolbox Killers. The transcript of the tape of Shirley Ledford's torture was one of the most terrifying things I've read. Some sick ducks. Bittaker and Norris. There's some footage on YouTube of the local station covering the trial, but were not allowed in the courtroom, had to stay in the hallway. Apparently one of the tapes was played in open court, and there are shots of various people coming out in varying degrees of distress just from listening. Makes me very pleased that those two are dead. I've heard the FBI uses those tapes to desensitize agents or to give them an idea of the fricked up poop they might see. Those transcripts are chilling. Dean Corll. I almost puked when reading about the methods of torture he used on little boys. He was such an a-hole that his teenage accomplice was the one that killed him, which revealed his 28+ murders to the public. There is a haunting photo of an unidentified victim that was found in his accomplice's property years after they got busted. Nobody has any clue who the kid is, but the image of distress on his face and the toolbox full of torture tools next to him have forever been burned into my mind. One of the saddest stories is one of the boys he picked up was 14 years old and on his way home from the gas station. He was saving up bottle caps for recycling money to take a girl to the movie, and he never made it home. Imagine how high on life that kid was. He must have worked so hard to get the money together to take a pretty girl he probably had a crush on for a long time to the movies. He must have been so happy on the walk home. But then he ended up dying a slow and painful death. Poop makes me tear up. I'd say Carla Holmoka and Paul Bernardo just because they were killing people in my hometown. I live like 2 minutes away from Carla's childhood home. That Carla got away basically scot-free, that she bamboozled the cops, disturbing girl. I hope the Canadian Secret Service will always keep one eye on that twisted woman. Didn't she also tell the court something like, "Paul manipulated me into killing my sister and said he would hurt me if I didn't"? Harlot was lying. William Bonin, aka the Freeway Killer, killed my childhood friend in 1980. He was 16. I was 15 at the time, and then that is too young an age to wrap your head around having a friend a victim of a serial killer. It changed me. Jesus. I'm sorry you experienced that. Thank you. I'm 55 years old now, and still when I think about it breaks my heart. His body was found in such a horrific manner. When you are 15 years old you just can't fathom. But then life dishes some hard lessons and the realization of it is manageable. Just barely though. I was able to hear the news of Bonin execution by radio and breathed a sigh of relief, although I will never understand how Bonin found recruits to help in his killings. It's a sad story. Thank you for your reply. Golden State Killer, when he would stay in the room. Yup, victims would wait hours blindfolded thinking he's gone, but he's still in the room. Oh frick, was that the guy who told people exactly what he'd do to them if they ran or tried to get help, and then he'd go silent for hours. Didn't some people survive him by following his orders? That's some advanced psychological torture. You know you and your family are in danger. You've not heard him in what must have been an hour or two. Is he going to return? Is now my chance? Wait, did he even leave? You don't know where he went or if he went. You're blindfolded and don't even know if it's morning yet. A fear of the unknown is the worst fear to people. It seems like that's what the Golden State Killer fed off of. BTK. Worked code enforcement, so plenty of access to homes, prominent church member, family man, depraved murderer. Saw an interview with one of the prosecutors, said the scariest thing about Rader was when you look at him and talk with him after seeing what I've seen, you realize the Dennis Rader you're talking to is not the real Dennis Rader. Can you elaborate on that? I don't know much about him aside from what I've seen in Mindhunter. The DC Snipers, John Allen Muhammad and John Lee Malvo. Not only were the killings completely random, people filling up with gas or walking in a parking lot, they started to move south, and I was still living in my hometown, Charlottesville, Virginia, so there was the fear they could make it that far south. I was in college in DC at this time. I remember the only advice was like, walk everywhere in a zigzag? I don't remember being super scared though. I think because the shootings were mostly happening in the suburbs, or maybe it was the invincibility of youth, or having come from NY and 9/11 and just being used to living life in low-grade state of terror. Israel Keys, rapist, serial killer, necrophiliac. He was raised in a militant fundamentalist Christian household, joined the military, then came back to the US and killed at least 11 people all over the country. He went to extraordinary lengths to not be caught by choosing victims at random, killing far from his home. He would hide kill kits and return years later when he was ready to kill someone in that area. It's terrifying how he killed a woman in Alaska, went on vacation with his family to some Caribbean island for a few days. Flew back to Alaska. Took the poor woman's body and sewed her eyes open and had her corpse pose with a newspaper that was a few days old to throw off law enforcement into thinking she was a runaway. Dismembered her. He then used her credit card in different states to show she was on the move. But that was what got him caught. H. Holmes, he would trap people in a room with complete darkness and either leave them to starve to death or cook them alive. There's a book, The Devil in the White City, if you want some more information on him. It's currently being made into a movie starring Leonardo DiCaprio and directed by Martin Scorsese. And yes, The Devil in the White City discusses his house of horrors. I can't remember what serial killer it was, but he talked about how much he loved Holmes' house, was inspired by it. Sick F. I just read about Fred and Rose West, a married couple in the UK who collectively were among the most prolific serial killers in modern UK history. It is a grim tale of rape and incest and prostitution and brutal murders and dismemberment of family members and random strangers, some of whom they buried in the garden behind their house. It's a fascinating yet horrific story. There's a book by Mae West, their daughter, not the film star, called Love As Always, Mom 30. It's an autobiography about Mae's life in the West's house and is well worth the read. Needless to say, it was a house of horrors. The Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez. Did some sick crap. Lived in Los Angeles, a dad and son team caught him in broad daylight. He gives me nightmares. I have a small story about this and it pisses me the hell off still. A few years ago, in middle school, my history teacher was talking about how she was a young girl and was terrified of the Night Stalker. She lived in the area of the killings. She moved a while later. She projected a picture of him up on the whiteboard and some girl in class looks up and says, "Oh, he's hot." My teacher just stared at her and said, "He would have raped and murdered you and your mother. He's a disgusting, terrifying man." East Area rapist, who went on to become the Golden State Killer and we now know as Joseph James DeAngelo. This guy would stalk his victims for weeks leading up to attacks, along with many other houses, while he was working as a police officer. When he attacked, he was relentless and would stay in the house for hours messing with his victims. When cornered, he would kill without a second thought. I think the craziest part to me about the GSK is that he would break into homes and leave shoestrings in hidden places in the house so he could quickly retrieve them to tie victims up when he came back for the attack. Imagine being one of those victims and slowly realizing not only the situation you were currently in, but also that this isn't the first time this masked man has been in your home. Robert Pickton. Piece of crap, killed poor, street-involved Native women. And police knew. The Canadian with the pig farm? Yup, read his case. And agreed, so many serial killers choose prostitutes as their victims because they know a dead Sally in the alley gets so little attention, particularly if they are POC. One of the reasons it's believed Wayne Williams was able to kill so many children in Atlanta. I remember reading one of the profilers of the Green River Killer got angry with a detective because he referred to one of the prostitute victims as N.H.I', no human involved. Sex workers may have their own problems, but no one deserves to die the way Pickton killed them. The Zodiac, because of the spooky letters and phone calls. And the fact that not many people have basements in California. You can see why Hollywood loved to use him. He was the inspiration for the Scorpio Killer in the first Dirty Harry movie, and why so many find him frightening. Partly because he was cunning enough to be so brazen and yet never get caught. What would have been your answer or question? Leave it in the comments below. Slap that like and subscribe button for more, and check out the link in the video description for even more answers. Peace out, and catch you in the next video.